Cars 3 credits are a treasure trove of Easter eggs. From the photos to things on the walls throughout the whole credits, to even an after credit scene you may not have known about. Today, welcome back to yet another video. I'm going to be going through a bunch of things you may have missed in the Cars 3 credits. And if you guys want to see this for the Cars 3 movie, let me know, and maybe I will in the future and go through some Easter eggs in the movie. Also, please note, any movie footage here is courtesy of Disney and Pixar Animation Studios. I don't own the footage. And yeah, let's get started. Alright, so here in one of the first pictures during the credits, Cruz is posing with the trophy with McQueen looking at her. And if you look closely in the background, the racetrack that she actually won this race on was the Copper Canyon Speedway, a racetrack we see earlier on in the movie, and also a playable location in Cars 3 Driven to Win. Now, up next is nothing much, and more of just something I recently noticed in this picture with Maddie McGear. She doesn't just have a 95 on her hat. At the end of the movie, now she also has a 51 on her hat, which is very similar to a diecast prototype that was recently found out of Mater with this same hat, except she never wore it in the movie. Maddie did. In this shot of Ramon giving the Legends his classic Ghost Flame paint job, Ramon is actually back in his classic purple paint job from the first Cars movie. Of course, it's really known as the most famous Ramon paint job usually, and he even has it later on in the credits in his other appearances during them. Just odd that they didn't pick a paint job he wore in Cars 3 for this credit scene. And one of my favorite parts of the credits, Lizzie here is on the simulator, and she's only going 12 miles an hour. Cruz is actually showing her how to use a simulator, but Lizzie looks like she's struggling there. And later on in the credits, it seems like the Legends have kept their Ghost Flame paint jobs. In this scene here of Cruz, Lightning, and River Scott going on the Midnight Run track, they're of course joined by Mater, who is driving backwards. Of course, him driving backwards with the silhouette over the moon is a reference to the first movie when he backwards drives, and is also a reference to E.T., the classic scene where E.T. is on the flying bicycle going over the moon. Alright, so we're done going through all the pictures that I wanted to point out, but I did want to bring up some naming credit things. For example, of course, most characters are named after their actors, like Maddie McGear, you could see, as well as the racers. And Sheriff does get a voice credit, which is kind of interesting because, I mean, Sheriff doesn't say one line in Cars 3. Another odd credit is Mike Joyride, who I never realized, I never knew who he was, I never saw him in the credits until recently. And it turns out that Mike Joyride is the car doing the Piston Cup Talk Around the Clock show when we see McQueen listening to the radio when he's in his primer state. Oh boy, here's where the Easter eggs get really heavy, and there are a lot. So, very early on after the voice credits, we can see a Hudson Hornet Piston Cup logo from Cars 2. Here it says Hudson Hornet Racing Series, but it's the same thing. These two magazine covers have normal stock art for Doc, just his card art or whatever, but the second magazine, for some weird reason, shows Doc doing his turn right to go left move in Radiator Springs, that famous scene from the first movie. But these magazines seem to have been made in the 50s, so why is that picture there? At that same time in the credits, you could see Doc's license plate, and a bit later, the Route 66 sign. There are also multiple different racetrack logos for most of the racetracks that appeared in the movie, and I'm pretty sure some that didn't. Also scattered throughout the credits are all the different advertisements for the product Sterling was going to make out of McQueen. And then there's this logo. I'm kind of confused on this one. It's in the area of the credits where most of McQueen's other logos appear for all of his products, but this almost looks like the Professor Z logo or something. It kind of looks like something resembling Professor Z from Cars 2. As you can see, it looks like a target with a Z in the middle. I'm not quite sure. Let me know if you guys, what you guys think of this in the comments. On these little Racing Center tickets, you can see one for Cruz and one for Craig Faster, a background character from the first Cars movie who was that rusty monster truck. Now, I don't know why, of all characters in the Cars universe, he was chosen for this, but I do have a theory. Craig Facer as a diecast was released in November 2016, about. Obviously, he would have been named earlier before that. And possibly, while they were making the Cars 3 credits, they were also naming characters for the diecast line, and they just decided to use a name recently come up with for the diecast line for the Cars 3 credits. I'm not quite sure, though. This is another weird thing. On the Pities Night advertisement that's shown later on in the credits, you could see a picture of what actually seems to be Luke Pedalwork, as well as a Trunk Fresh Pity from the first Cars movie. They're both using their usual die-cast card art, but their colors are changed and mixed up so that they're not those characters. And here you could see the racers only beyond this point sign from the Demolition Derby, as well as a sign for Interstate 95. I wonder what that refers to. Obviously, it's McQueen. You could also see a sign for the Dynaco 400, but it looks a bit older, like an older logo compared to what we see in the movies. Possibly the logo from the first Cars. Right after this, you could also see a classic revolting logo, much like the one worn by Leroy Hemming. The car Doc flips over in his flashback. Nothing much to say here, I just really like this sign. And speaking of signs, here's another sign, this time for Dynaco, a more old-fashioned Dynaco logo like the one we see on the side of Lizzie's Curio Shop, and also inside the cotter pin. Then, towards the end, things start to get a bit complicated. We get a huge mix of a bunch of different Piston Cup logos. The Toe Cap logo and Octane Gain logos seem to be the ones from the first Cars movie, as well as Spearmint and Vitaline. And Easy Idle's logo doesn't really change, but the top four seem to be the ones used from the first movie. Revolting's logo also seems to be from the first movie, or possibly the one worn by T.G. Castlenut. But as we continue, you could see the Tank Coat logo is actually Rich Mixon's. Kind of a weird mix of logos there. But it gets weirder and a bit more interesting on the other side of the credits, with the Gaskets logo used by Dan Garcia, Sputter Stop, Retread, which was a sponsor that didn't even make it into Cars 3 and was replaced, the Next Gen Mood Springs logo, and Waxy Wax. What's going on with that? Why isn't it Shiny Wax? Well, as revealed from as early on as the first Cars movie, Shiny Wax used to be called Waxy Wax. You could see in Doc's garage some boxes of Waxy Wax. So yeah, it seems like at some point in time they changed their name to Shiny Wax. The logo, aside from the word waxy, is exactly the same as seen on Darren Leadfoot in the first Cars. I really just wanted to point out all these different logos because they seem to come from all different kinds of eras from the Cars universe. Of course, Fiber Fuel is another sponsor that didn't make it into Cars 3, odd that it's in the credits. Nitrowade's logo didn't change until Tim Treadless, so that's either Aiken Axler or Phil Tankson's logo. The Vinyl Toupee logo is only seen on Rev Rotages, and the Bumper Save logo was the one used by Paul Conrev, the Next Gen. Finally, we have the logo for Sidewall Shine, another sponsor that didn't make it into Cars 3, and the Intersection logo. And also, as you can see here, the By and Large Raceway logo pops up towards the very end of the credits. This is, of course, a reference to By and Large, the company from Wall-E that took over the planet, basically. And a By and Large Raceway appears during Storm's winning montage in the Cars 3 movie, so here's the company's racetrack logo. And finally, there is a post-credit scene of an extended cut of Mater's song, singing around. He ends up knocking some things over, and it's pretty great. Anyway, guys, thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Bye now.